Hello everyone and welcome. It's the Black Shadow here. Hopefully you're keeping fairly well, enjoying yourselves some summer warmth. This is the first thing that I've recorded since we concluded the Stoneburner Open, our first Uprising competition for Dune Imperium last weekend. And since then there's been quite a lot of news actually, and lots of events going on here, so I thought it would be a good idea to kind of put this video together to cover a variety of those, and also give you guys a bit of an idea of kind of what's coming up for the channel over the course of the next couple of months or so. Just to get this quickly out the way while we're here, as I've mentioned over on our Discord server, link to that in the description below, with the conclusion of Stoneburner Open, we're going to be taking a short break from hosting big competitions. The idea being that we basically did two back-to-back with the end of XIMO, going immediately into this Uprising competition, and I need a short break. It's hard work doing these things, and also we're coming to the summer season. People are going away for holidays and doing all sorts of bits and pieces, so it gives us an opportunity to kind of take a quick break from doing that to return not too long down the line, but it also gives us the opportunity to also kind of delve into content that we sometimes struggle to put together in the midst when we're holding tournaments, because a lot of our stuff is going to be very heavily focused on covering those events. So a lot of ancillary stuff, stuff like the top 5 series that we did. I want to revisit my leader tier listing that I did for Uprising before the competition to kind of see how that's changed, and there definitely are some changes I'm going to need to make to that list. But all in all, just to let you know that it does, because we're going on summer recess here, that it's not like we're just going dead for 2 months. No, not at all. In regards to that as well, quick cheap plug here, but on Monday I will be streaming live at about 6 o'clock UK time. A tournament I actually decided to enter for Dune Imperium Digital is being hosted there. 16-man competition, which will feature a few names that I believe you'll be familiar with as well. I believe Lanny's actually joined it as well. So we're doing some streaming of that, as well as some other bits and pieces along the way as well. And it'll be nice to see some of you guys there. So first up, let's talk about the Stoneburner Open, our first Uprising competition, which I think on the whole went pretty well. First of all, huge thanks to everyone that supported us and watched along over the course of the finals weekend. I think we peaked about 150, 160 people watching live for the final match of the tournament, which was a really, really good game as well, and it's been several days now since then. Huge congratulations to the winner of the match, which I won't spoil here in case you haven't seen it yet, but you do ought to go and have a look at the match. It was possibly one of the best final games we've had. We've had a couple that have been a bit one-sided, but this one had some real drama at the end of it and was a really, really good watch. It was nice to have everyone watching along. I think it was a really good experience. And I think summed up on the whole a fairly successful tournament as well. This was a bit experimental, admittedly. We tried out some new things for this competition, some of which I think worked and some of which left some room for improvement, and that's totally fine. When you change formats like this, you have the opportunity to kind of tweak under the hood a little bit. And I do think overall, the reception has been generally positive for it. The reason I bring this up is because I want to make public at least a little bit of information. At the end of the group stage competition, I actually posted a form for people to give their feedback on various thoughts for the tournament as well. And I want to share some of those details with you guys. So here is the form. As mentioned, I posted this over on the Discord section to all the players involved after the group stages for any responses and people wanted to give. And we had about 40 responses out of about 150 odd players that joined. So a few interesting stats I just want to point out here. This isn't the whole lot, so I don't really need to show everything that we asked about this. But overall, the feeling of the competition was fairly positive, which is good. There was admittedly a couple of uneven experiences for a couple of folks. Some of which I'm aware of, some of which I couldn't do very much about, and this is also reflected in the fact, as far as scheduling the games, it wasn't easy for some groups. We did change the format from going from a you were just based upon your time zone to a you selected a time zone that you were opting in to play. A lot of groups that worked out pretty well, but there was notably a few where there was some difficulties here, and that was a little bit disappointing. I was hoping for that to move a bit smoother. However, there were also a bit of disparity in groups. There was one group that had 7 players. There was another group that had 10. And the difference between that was definitely quite vast and proved to be a lot more trickier than I was expecting. So room for improvement, but again, that's the thing. When I opted in, I was just simply a case of you choose your time zone. I have a lot less flexibility in regards to how I shuffle people around. Whereas if I do it by the time zone that you're in, I can kind of mess around a bit more, but not be particularly suitable, so it's kind of, touch and go. So the next couple of questions were quite fascinating because I wasn't entirely sure what response I was going to get. And this was the response to this one especially. This one was regarding about the fact that we do tend to have one group or maybe two that struggle to get all their games done by the end of the group stages. I usually kind of allow already a week overlap of like a free week to get any catch-up games played because, you know, things happen, schedules get difficult for people. But I was curious to see what the community thought regarding what should we do about that. Should we just blanket allow people to have that extra time, or should we just say, if you're not playing by the date, you just get null and void everything? And the responses were quite interesting. Very heavily split between options 2 and 3 here. Option 2 basically allowing case-by-case basis extensions for them only. And option 3 here, which is basically, as long as you've rearranged your game to at least a couple of days after the deadline date, by that deadline date, you can play it. Otherwise, just straight null and void it. Which proved to be a lot more popular than I was honestly expecting. But it is definitely a frustration, and I definitely got that back from a few folks, a frustration of kind of, you know, especially when you've got an opt-in system, it's not so much where you've just been arranged depending on what your time zone is. When you opt in to a time section, and then you still struggle to make those games, and that is definitely a frustration for players, and I can definitely understand that. It's just kind of the nature of the system that we're running here. And obviously, any ways we can think to improve that will be looked at, and that's something we can touch upon for the next competition. Now, the last couple of points I'll show off here were really, really fascinating. I didn't quite expect this. This was regarding what should people get rewarded for winning matches in Dune Imperium. We changed from a 5-3-2-1 system in previous competitions with 5 points going to the winner and the 3-2-1 from there to a 6-3-2-1 to kind of encourage people going for the win more. And I was curious to see what his feedback was. This idea came about from the second North Carolina Invitational back in the spring. Several players gave feedback and saying that maybe we should try it, and I opted to go ahead and do so. But from the responses we got from this form here, it was almost a dead heat split between saying that 6-3-2-1 is good and that we should revert to a 5-3-2-1, with a sizable portion saying that they weren't really sure. Very surprised about this. I really thought it would be very heavily in one camp or the other. I actually thought the 6-3-1 would go down probably fairly popular, but it shows that maybe the 6-3-1 perhaps is a little bit too extreme. I don't know. It's very split for me as well between the two. Both have their pros and cons. I already know that there are some folks that feel that, players shouldn't be trying to play for a second place, but, you know, in a group stage system where there's points around, like, sometimes you just got to play for the score draw sort of thing and just kind of bank that single point to go by other sports and stuff like that. So that was quite fascinating. And also regarding should we do and make any changes to the rest of the plays, the 3-2-1 system. Here was the response we got for that. Most people pretty happy with 3-2-1. However, there was some portions suggesting that either, quite a lot of not sure here, but a few people did respond saying that if you don't win, you shouldn't get any additional points with your second, third, or fourth place, which I know is definitely the feeling of some people in the community. So I wasn't surprised to see a few hits for this. But still, seeing that was definitely quite interesting. But regardless, just want to show these off. Last thing I'll show off as well regarding how we should do the qualification from the groups to a knockout stage, which has definitely been the topic of much conversation. Most players very happy to have kind of like a second chance kind of wildcard style round like we've had in the SBO. So the first couple of two go through directly, and then like a third, fourth, and fifth have a second chance shot. Because, it can be really hard to win games of Dune Imperium, as people know. If you're winning like 35 or 40% of your matches, you're doing exceptionally well in this game. So to have that kind of second chance catch is definitely of appeal to players, and that is good to see. As a last bit of information for you guys, I've obviously had several questions regarding what is going to be the next tournament for the channel. Is it going to be more Uprising? Is it going to be a modified version of that? Or maybe we can make a return back to Ix Immortality for Dune Imperium. Might we even see something on Dune Imperium Digital? And the truth is that at this moment in time, I don't know. I can say that there are things being worked on in the background, which I can't really talk about potentially at this moment, quite early stages on that. but there are plans being worked on to enact a little bit later on down the line, and might well revolve around what our next competition is actually going to be about. But at this moment, I can't really, it's in early stages, so I haven't got that decision ready to make at this moment in time. We'll kind of see how the ground lies going forward, but there's definitely room for several different options to be considered. So once we have made a decision upon that in the coming weeks, we will definitely let you know. So next up I want to talk about is Gen Con 2024 being hosted over at Indianapolis, Indiana. It is, of course, the largest game convention in North America, featuring all sorts, not just for the board games, but also like pen and paper and all sorts of crazy stuff going on over there. First of all, I'm not going to be there. It's unfortunately a little bit of a walk here from the United Kingdom, but if Scott over at Direwolf is watching, if you do fancy hosting any events over this side of the Atlantic, I'd be very interested. There's quite the scene in France, I hear. Just saying. Anyways, the reason I want to bring this up, and no, Direwolf are not paying me for this bit, I can assure you, is that they do indeed have a variety of events going on at the event from Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, featuring obviously loads of Dune Imperium stuff, Dune Imperium Digital, and other stuff as well. Clank Invincible, which is one of the recent games they've just recently announced, as well as other bits and pieces as well. But the thing I want to make a note of specifically is the North American Championships being hosted for Dune Imperium Uprising. There are qualifiers being hosted on the Thursday and Friday, with the knockout rounds beginning on the Saturdays and the championship match be played on Sunday afternoon. Obviously, I'm going to make mention of this because this is not the first time they've hosted this event. Indeed, there have been previous winners of these events over the Gen Cons that have actually ended up turning at the events being hosted in North Carolina, which has been pretty cool. And generally just a bit of awareness, like if you are going to be at this event here, and over with Direwolf, even if it's not just Dune Imperium, any of their stuff, it'd be great to hear from you guys. I'm certain that there are probably a few people around on the Discord server. We've got about 2,000 people over there now that are going to be over across with this. So if anyone's going to be there, it'd be lovely to hear from you, and hear from some experiences, get some photographs. I'm sure Paul Dennon will be happy to give you one if you ask him nicely, and maybe throw him a few bucks on the side. And the last thing I want to talk about is Dune Imperium Digital, and that is we finally got news from the developers regarding a release date for the Rise of X expansion, and some of the bits and pieces as well that are due to come out. This was on June 26th. There's a link of this in the description below if you want to have a look at the full press release. But after their initial roadmap that they released a couple of months or so ago, things have been very, very quiet on the digital front outside of patch notes and kind of doing a bit of bug fixing, stuff like that. But finally, Rise of X was announced and is going to be due to release in the second half of July, which means that I am indeed an oracle. Because I have been saying for about past sort of 6-7 weeks now on Discord servers, on streams, my assumptions you're going to see is the back end of July. As it turns out, was absolutely on the money as I go and take my victory lap. Anyways, it is available on Steam. It's a wish list. It's only going to be released on Steam initially. It is due to be then brought across to other platforms, I assume in the coming weeks or so, but it is only going to be Steam initially. But we do not have an exact day where this is going to come out yet, which is a little bit surprising. But I think there's a reason for that, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. Anyway, it's kind of samples of what I think it's got to look at here. But information obviously about X. If you're not aware, this was the first expansion that came out for Dune Imperium about 18 months, 2 years or so after the original game came out, and definitely changed a lot about the game. I think on the whole, a very positive expansion as well, kind of making some tweaks, some of the unloaded stuff that maybe was a little bit, I don't want to say slow and stodgy about the original game, but there was some imbalances that maybe could have been addressed. Also, the big change coming about is the introduction of the shipping system into the shipping, as well as the textiles that you could also get, which give you benefits across the game as well. Of course, we've done a lot of competitions on X as well as XIMO, and there's definitely a variety of videos on the channel regarding our tier listing of cards and talking about playing free play and stuff like that, which are probably still fairly relevant. X hasn't changed a whole ton since we made those videos, so maybe we'll find some information there. Anyways, if we scroll down towards the bottom here, we get to the important stuff. So the expansion is going to be including all 6 leaders from Rise of X, which the initial press release said 4. And I very quickly went to Direwolf and said, what the hell are you talking about? And then it so happened to change very, very quickly after that. Obviously, the board spaces, Razavik stuff. But the thing to notice here is that, yes, the new cards and abilities, they will be getting the most from 35 new Imperium deck cards. 35 is exactly the amount that Razavik brings in, which would suggest that we are not going to see any of the promo cards coming in for the game. So that's stuff like Balance Ambition, that's stuff like Thumper, Duncan Loyal Blade, and I'm trying to think of the fourth one, and I can't think of it off the top of my head. I'm sure someone will tell me. Which also is that maybe when we get to Paita for Immortality, we may not see him as well. But that's down the line and not particularly relevant at this point. Other things which is very interesting to know about is that it's also going to include the Epic Game Mode. This is a mode that was originally available in just base Dune Imperium, allowing you to extend the gameplay from 10 victory points you need to win over to 12, and also changing the cards around, bringing the control of the Spice card in place for Dune Desert Planet. We've played 1 or 2 games of this over the course of time, and Epic Mode is kind of an interesting tweak on things, and is kind of fun to do every now and again. I did note when this was coming out originally that Epic Mode did not exist on the original version for digital, but I'm glad to see that's going to be part of the expansion. However, those eagle-eyed of you and have been following along with this may realise that there's a couple of things that haven't been mentioned over the course of this press release that have been mentioned about previously by the team. And as such, I'll take you back to the digital roadmap that was released back in March. This is when Dune Digital came out initially, and a roadmap of the things that we're looking to do. Top of the list, of course, is Rise of X, and saying that they were looking to get that underway, and as such have made that progress. However, scroll a bit further down, and there's some other things which haven't been talked about so far. Player profiles and ranked play. Of course, this is of great interest to those. We do obviously have a very heavy competitive scene over with Hidden Assets, join along with TTS Club. And it has been a subject of topics of this is going to be in Dune Digital. I'm pretty sure it's still going to be. However, it's worth noting, kind of reading through here, that they are working towards implementing ranked play options as well as a karma system to improve match quality for casual games by prioritizing pairing players who finish games rather than quitting. It is a little bit of a difficulty at the moment on digital, just playing random games. I wouldn't say that it's endemic, but obviously there is no particular penalty to quitting games of Dune Imperium at the moment on the digital platform, which is a little bit annoying and, isn't ideal by any stretch of imagination, and does come up every now and again. So any way to improve that would definitely be good. I'll talk more about this specifically in a short moment. Also, there's a capacity for tracking allies in the game. So we're developing player profiles to show you how you stack up against competition and better track your progress as a whole. So some kind of rating system they're looking to implement into Dune Imperium Digital. And I've been kind of thinking about this for a while, thinking, well, what is it going to look like? Those from obviously with Hidden Assets will know that we do have an ELO system that we've incorporated into Dune Uprising, well as the XMO system as well, which, has been running for quite a while and has become fairly robust, although it has seen some changes over the course of time. And of course, the question is, are we about to see something like that in Dune Imperium Digital? I think the answer is, I'm not actually too sure that's what we're going to see. There is previous for Direwolf in kind of introducing rating systems into their games and platforms, but those have varied a little bit. So I have a couple of other games in my Steam library courtesy of Direwolf Digital, and they both have rating systems of some kind in them, so I thought we'd go back and have a look and see kind of a bit of the track history. First we're going to look at is Root, as it's done by Leather Games. It was released back in September of 2020. It's released, I believe it's received some of the expansions of the Root board game, but I don't believe it's received all of them, but that's beside the point here. Anyways, when you go ahead and boot up the game here, you will find that there is indeed, the local play online function as well, is that there is a leaderboard system. Like, oh my god, they've got ratings in Root. That's pretty cool, considering this game is adorable, but also incredibly cutthroat. So you boot it up here, and you find this. And you're like, what? Like, excuse me? And then it becomes clear what this actually is. So instead of having like an ELO kind of live rating system, obviously chess or something we've used for like our own system of Hidden Assets, they have a score system where you accrue points for playing the game, be it online or offline. You do get more points for winning games, stuff like that. But you don't ever lose points. it's impossible to lose points. You just simply accrue here, and what ends up is that you get a situation where you've got like Proxy, for example, might not actually be the greatest player in Root history, but might just be the person who has simply put in the most time and played the most games of it. My initial theory was that this was what we were going to see for this game. For Dune Imperium. My first thought is that we were going to see something along this system, which is not what I would have wanted to have seen, truthfully. But then I was going back to the press release, and I was thinking about kind of what they said in, obviously, the player profiles, but they also mentioned about a karma system. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, I've heard that phrase somewhere before. I know it from somewhere. I couldn't quite put my finger on it for quite a while. And then I remembered the other game that I have in my library. And that is the Game of Thrones digital board game, which was first released a month later in October 2020. This is, of course, based off of the original board game by Fantasy Flight. This was done, developed by Direwolf, and I believe published by, I think it was Twin Tales Interactive, something along those lines. Anyways, this is actually a game I played a little bit over the course of the pandemic, obviously being shut in, especially in 2020 when I played this a little bit as well. I had some good games, there's some good times. Noted Dune Imperium regular as well. You got Frank has a history in playing in Game of Thrones tournaments as well. Little known fact, and you know, maybe it's something that'd be explored upon one day. Anyways, the reason I bring this up is because, as you can see at the top right, this does have a rating system. Look at that. ELO 1499. I think it started at 1500. I don't remember. I didn't play very much like actual online games. But also, you'll notice is that there's this here. There's these little pips here. This is an actual karma system that they did implement into this as well. So it would know if you tend to join games, or if you quit them early, you would obviously gain and reduce karma. I don't think it really made a big significant difference in what games you could actually matchmake in at the time, but it at least highlights other players' kind of expectations. Now, there's a downside to this, however. This system here, I don't know the exact specifics, so I could be wrong in misspeaking here, but I don't believe this has anything actually to do with Direwolf specifically. If I click on this, you'll notice that this is Asmo Connect. This was being done via Asmodee, and in fact, actually, is a system that is still alive to this day. However, it means that, you know, there was an ELO functionality, it wasn't actually seemingly done by Direwolf Digital. So indeed, if you do go over to Asmodee's site, it all still exists. The whole thing is here. So, Game of Thrones board game, digital edition, bit of details about the game and stuff like that. And I just want to quickly throw out as well, I actually did quite enjoy the game. I thought they did a really good job with the game, the implementation, kind of, bringing it into the rules. Obviously, there was a mod for that definitely existed for Tabletop Simulator, but a game like this was really complex and really easy to get a lot of stuff wrong. I think they did a decent job with this, although there was maybe a couple of decisions they could have made better with the expansions, but, that's the way it goes sometimes. So if we click over here, over onto rankings, you'll find, look at this! My goodness me! It's an actual legitimate ELO system here. Being topped by Rob Gulliman with an ELO score of 1964, and apparently has played over 1,400 games of Game of Thrones, which might possibly be every single game that has ever been played in the existence of humanity. An absolutely unreal amount of time put in. Fair play to him. Possibly a psychopath to play that much. That is insane, but, good job to him. But it goes to show that this sort of system can definitely be implemented into these sorts of games. I don't necessarily have any details on how the scoring for this works. My guess is that it was winner takes all. It seems very Games of Thrones. It'd be like if Twilight Imperium decided to have an ELO system as well. It'd also be like you kind of have to just give all the points to the winner. It's kind of just how the game is built. Whether that is suitable for Dune Imperium is a conversation that needs to be had like every other week, but that's something that does not need rehashing here at all. There's definite philosophical choices on both sides of things. But even if this wasn't exactly Direwolf Digital that did this side of things, at the very least, they've had it incorporated into their games, and it's just, when they said like player profit and commerce system as well, this is what I thought, and I was like, it already exists, it's right here. And even if they maybe tweak it a little bit slightly, there's clearly a framework that they've had previously and stuff they've done that they might well use for Dune Imperium Digital. Now, what exactly how the rating is going to work, I don't know. Is the ELO just going to apply universally? very possible. I believe that's what they did as well for this as well. Like the ELO applied in the same way, whether you're playing base game, whether you're playing with Feast of Crows or whatever expansion, you know, you would gain or lose scored if you won or lost the game. And I suspect that is what you'll also see for doing Imperium Digital. Otherwise, you have to start splitting everything. You think you'd have base game, you'd have Rise of X, you've got Immortality probably coming some point soon, you've got live games, you've got asynchronous games. Like, having a different score for all of those is just completely ridiculous. Even on hidden assets, we only have 2 separate leaderboards, you know, X Immo for base Dune Imperium and base Dune Uprising, you know, and that's reasonably fine, because those two are obviously very, very different styles to each other, very different games to each other. So that's my guess is what we'll see. And as for when we get news for this, I think it actually could be really soon. So given the fact that there is no firm actual day of release, it means that there's going to be another press release coming from Direwolf probably in the next couple of weeks or so. My guess is that they're actually going to give details on these systems alongside that release. Is going to be my guess. Again, I don't know any of this. Is just pure rampant speculation, all of this. I don't have any informants over at Direwolf giving me any news, at least that I know of. But that is going to be my guess, is they're going to have a release in a couple of weeks or so. It's going to be released on this day, and they'll say, oh, actually, remember that rank stuff we said we were going to talk about? Here's details on how that's going to work. So I expect that's what they're going to do, incorporate into one. That's what I'd like to see. I expect that's what we're going to see as well. Also, they do obviously have the events tab as well in the game too, and they haven't released any, they haven't actually run any competitions or events for Dune Imperium since the betas. There were 2 of them that were done in the betas. I wasn't able to even them, sadly. Been waiting for a 3rd one to come out. Haven't seen any yet. So I suspect we'll be hearing news about all of that fairly soon. But that's going to pretty much do it for us here for this video. Covered plenty of news, bit of speculation, all that lovely good stuff. So yeah, going forward, as a reminder, again, we do have the stream coming on Monday with the digital tournament. Also, whenever Rise of X is going to be announced for its release date, I'll do my damage to make sure I'm streaming that evening. So it'd be good to obviously get through that. We're going back to like when we did our initial stream when digital came out in the first place. It was one of the most watched streams we've ever done. And so it'd be great to definitely cover that. Also, I'm definitely going to be awfully... When was the last time I played a Dune Imperium Rise of X game? It's been a long old time. Going to be rusty as all heck, so I might have to go through some of our own materials to remember what I'm doing for the game. And again, as noted as well, when we do have the stuff for the expansions for and future competition, I should say, for Dune Imperium for us on Hidden Assets, we'll let you know that as soon as we can. But I say there is work going on in the background, and fingers crossed if it goes pretty well. Exciting times are ahead. That's all I can say. So take care of yourselves, everyone. Have yourselves a good summer. We'll see you on the channel for some content dotted about here and there, some tier lists, some strategy guides, that sort of thing. And we'll see you all very, very soon.